All right, so my name is Brian Downing. I was born April 12th, 1985 at 6:40 p.m. in Carbondale, Illinois. And I guess that's going to be relevant for those of you who are into astrology or things like that, time of birth and determining your personality and things like that. But yeah, so what this video is about is kind of my journey with understanding this whole woo-woo realm, expanding consciousness and things like that, and just going from a guy who's not particularly spiritually aware, and to a guy that's kind of maybe increasing that awareness over time. So I guess to kind of give a little bit of background for these kinds of experiences, when I was a kid, very often, I mean, not to say that this was like, persistent, day to day or anything like that, but every so often, maybe once a month or every couple of months, I would just have this one night where I just couldn't fall asleep. I had a very difficult time falling asleep. And I would lie in my bed with my eyes closed, and I would see these very colorful blobs in my vision. And I'd just kind of look at them and it just doing anything to try, count sheep. And so I'm looking at these things, trying to count sheep or whatever, and, just doing whatever I can to just fall asleep. And it's just a tough time as a kid sometimes. And, if I didn't have like a good, at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep as a kid, I was a really grumpy guy. So it was kind of unfortunate. So yeah, that was that. And then, I'd say I didn't really encounter much anything beyond that growing up through adulthood. And then when I was 23, I entered an acting program at Northern Illinois. So I was a BFA acting major over there. And part of the curriculum was, particularly within our movement classes, we would do a lot of meditation. And so, lying down, get your yoga mat out, and just lie down flat on the ground and really take snapshots of every single part of your body, top to, like head to toe, up and down the arms, kind of release every single point of tension within your body and just relax. And we did that in a constructed, in an organized, guided environment where the entire class would be guided by a teacher in order to do these things. And so that's kind of where I developed at least some measure of technique in terms of finding my causing my body to relax. And so we did that throughout the semesters. And then we would have a teacher come in, a specialized teacher come in, and she would lay us down on a massage table, and she'd not massage us, but put her hands on various parts of our body and kind of key into our energy or whatever like that. So for an example, we would lie down with our feet close to our butt, so our knees are at a bend, and she would have her palms on our thigh and our shin, just on either side of the kneecap. And she would tell us to kind of create an imaginary point at our hip and an imaginary point at our ankle, and very slowly bring those points together at our kneecap. And she would just have her hands on our knee, and whenever that imaginary point got to the kneecap, just by having her hands there, she would know exactly where our attention was focused doing that. And when I first encountered that, I thought it was something akin to witchcraft or something. It was absolutely kind of strange. Man. So yeah, really, really kind of neat. At this point, I should probably mention kind of like perhaps possible genetic disposition. My mom historically has always been able to see people's auras. And she had a grandmother, great-grandmother actually, and she was living in an old folks home at the time, and once upon a time way back when, and there was a tragedy that actually befell her family where there was a house fire, and my mother's grandmother, so my mother's maternal grandmother, she went in the house to get something, and she died of asphyxiation, actually. So that was a big tragedy, but congruent to when that was happening, her mother shot up in her bed saying something is very wrong with Vivian. So this is her mother explaining that. So yeah, so there's kind of this history of various sort of things going on with consciousness, at least, within certainly my mother's side of the family. So yeah, so that's all that. And then, so in my junior year, that first semester, we went to the Moscow Art Theater for a semester of learning their acting techniques out there in Russia. So, and this was probably the best 3 months of my life. An absolutely amazing time. Just a very special time in my life. It's my Shangri-La. I can never get back to it. It's just one of those just amazing things. But one of the, and we did a bunch of really, really fun exercises in class too. So we would do things like someone would stand in one corner of a room and someone would be standing, with their back facing to them immediately in front of them. And the person behind would be looking down. So the person in front would walk forward and they simply have their attention focused on each other. And at some point at the choosing the person behind, he would look up at the person in front of them. And that person ahead should stop somehow, right? However, I do think the construct of that particular exercise might be a little bit flawed because, from one corner of the room to another corner of the room, there's there's this limited amount of space. So you kind of have to judge where the guy is looking. So there's this very limited range of space where you can kind of predict where the guy should be looking at you, who's behind you, right? So, but it's an exercise where we would do that. So as soon as you look at the guy, then that guy's supposed to stop, and he has no visual cue to really go by. And then this other one that we did was we would have two chairs back to back of each other, right? So you're sitting back to back with your scene partner, I guess, or your this exercise partner, I guess. And in this exercise, you're allowed to have your hands in 4 positions. So low and in, low and out, and up and in. And so you just kind of, so the entire purpose of this exercise is to keep your attention on the person behind you. And then just whatever impulse, just go by impulse. You are not thinking about what motion, you just know the range of motions that you're allowed to do, and just go by the impulse within those parameters. So you're just focused on the other person. You're not even thinking about where your hands are, except within the range, except as long as you're abiding by those parameters. And so whenever I would go up in front of the class to do this with whichever partner that I had, and we'd always switch up people. And you weren't allowed to comment on how other people were doing, right? No one would comment, and that was the rule. You just couldn't comment. And so whenever we would go up to do that, they'd have us up there for perhaps a few minutes, and then we'd take our seats, and then people would kind of look at me like that. And, that was something that was kind of consistent most every time I went up. And we did this, close to a dozen times throughout the semester, doing this particular exercise where everyone had an opportunity to do it about a dozen times overall. And so, and then another exercise that we did that I was very bad at was one person in the other corner of the room, the other person in the corner of the room, and eyes closed, and you had to tag the other person. And I did that exercise 8 times, and I always got tagged first. And it really upset me because that was one I enjoyed a lot, and I just was is just so bad at it. So, it's like a year later, it's our senior year in college, and we're reminiscing about how wonderful Russia was, right? And and I'm griping about that whole situation where I always got tagged, the one I really wanted to do, right? And and then someone turns to me and says, "Well, yeah, I mean, you sucked at that one, Brian, but the one where you were in the chairs, like every single time you went up, you were in lockstep with the other person, certainly within a second of the motions." For a good 3 or 4 iterations, and that happened every time you went up. And me observing other people, I'd be surprised if anyone even found synchronicity within one position, even one time over the course of that semester. So that I was so consistent above what you were able to observe baseline was, kind of, it was kind of, it took my notice. And so, so yeah, God, I mean, I could talk forever about Russia, but I should continue on with all the rest of the stuff. So so still in college, post-Russia, there was this really scary instance where I woke up from a dream, and it was a very frightening experience. I was paralyzed in my bed, had the sensation that there was this dark shadowy figure hovering above me, reaching into my chest and stopping my heart. So I mean, I woke up to chest pains. It felt like I was being strangled. Here, not my throat, but here I was just being constricted and prevented from moving. It is a very absolutely frightening experience. It only ever happened the one time, but I'm still curious as to what was the true nature of that experience. Was this just something, my brain short-circuiting coming out of a dream, or was it something else? So that was a thing. And so, I graduate college and, just living my own life, and, certain things would occur. There'd be a greater, after college, there's certainly a greater instance while resting in bed, or being in twilight, and I would kind of have random phrases kind of pop into my head, right? Just random stuff like, I found the perfect combination between beauty and tracelessness, or he calls them swipe phone parking lots, or something like that. It's things that don't exactly make too much sense. It's like, I'm not sure if there's some sort of synapse firing off in my brain or what. But occasionally, these random phrases or sentence fragments or whatever, they come up, and occasionally you could hear someone's timbre or intonation associated with it. Again, you're not actually hearing anything. It's weird. There's no sensation here, but within your head you're registering something all the same. It's really kind of strange how to describe it. So this would happen so I graduated in 2012, and this was persistent for I mean, it still occurs today, but there was so that's kind of been going on ever since. And very rarely I would have some sort of electrical discharge sensation kind of occur kind of between my ears. And it's kind of like plugging in an amp that's kind of switched on already, so you get that bzz sound, and I'd hear that bzz, and I'd get this shock internally within my head. Very kind of weird situation. And so that was kind of the intervening 5 years or so after college. So the big inflection point was I had moved out to California, was getting way into alternate media, listening to a lot of Cliff High, my big hero. And and Cliff talks about a lot of amazing stuff like Antarctica, a lot of woo-woo stuff, aliens and all this crap, floaty triangles and whatever. And so one of his videos, and this was actually a pirated video, so this was a conversation that he was having with someone, and he was talking about remote viewing. And So he was trying to describe this process of, like of what it looks like within your vision, with your eyes closed, with these pulsating lights or whatever, these blobs of light, of false light within your vision. And he's trying to describe this person. I don't think he was quite getting it, because I think he was in a lit room and he was actually kind of seeing light come through his eyelids. You know how you get kind of that reddish kind of hue in your vision, as opposed to being like true black. And so, when I'm watching this video, and I remember those false lights as a kid. So I'm like, okay, and he's kind of describing things, how you get in a relaxed state, pitch black room, lying on the ground, doing whatever meditation or relaxation techniques. And I also had some background in meditation techniques. So I'm like, okay, I think this is something that I can kind of experiment with myself. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So, I had my laptop there. I set that aside. I lied down in my bed. It's dark-ish. There was some light coming through the rooms. I was living in a studio at the time with my younger brother. He's in the dark. He's on his laptop doing his own thing. He's got earbuds, so he's in his own room. And so what I did was I just lay down in my bed, and I literally just covered my eyes, lying down, not trying to do anything, just trying to see what happens, right? Not trying to make anything happen at first. He did mention this component of technique with applying rotation to these false lights. But, so I'm lying in bed, and, certainly within 5 minutes, I get the blobs going, right? So blobs are going, I'm hanging out with the blobs. And a few minutes later, the blobs turn into kind of these amorphous, swirly lines, kind of almost like fingerprints, only they're kind of dancing and swirling around, right? And so that goes on for a few minutes until they line up into perfectly vertical lines. So I've got these false lights organized into lines, and I try to apply rotation, where you think of it like that. As soon as I attempted to do that, they didn't do this. They actually kind of aligned into concentric circles instead. And as soon as that happened, this massive rush of blood, just a single pump of blood from my heart to the top of my head. It congealed right at the top of my head. It almost felt like it was going to explode. And just this very powerful, unique physiological sensation I'd never felt before at that time. And so as soon as that happened, I was like, yep, Cliff was right, all this crap, and this, that, and the other thing. And yeah, just absolutely amazing. So that was that. And so, the intervening nights after this, and when was this truly? I'd say this would have to have been approximate to November or December sometime of 2016. So, and that was a great time. Cubs won the World Series. Trump gets elected president. I'm feeling great. My spiritual awakening. So. And so, so that was that. And then, the intervening nights, and actually for a long time thereafter, I'd say for a good year and a half, I'd say it was very, very easy to remote view. It's just these instances of getting blobs, turning them into lines, and rotating the lines, and then suddenly you're getting these visual scenes of, very organic looking too, like you're walking through a forest, and lights shining between the leaves. You see skylines. You're in like a library, and light is shining through the window onto a bookshelf. So these scenes, they're described more or less in terms of light and shadow. And, and that's how I kind of describe that whole remote viewing sensation. And, that's starting at the very end of 2016, all throughout 2017. And, I'd say powerful enough through the early part of 2018. And then kind of things started getting kind of scary, where you see goblins or gremlins or these things with sharp teeth, with holes for eyes, basically. Very disturbing kind of images. So I kind of tried to do everything I could to kind of back off from the remote viewing when that started happening. And I didn't do much of that since. It still occurs occasionally. but not where there's kind of thing where like multiple nights a week I was just having a really decent remote view. All right, so we're still in 2017 and I'm doing all this remote viewing. And then there's a couple of other instances. These voices, yeah, I kind of get in my head that I want to start responding back to them. So if I hear something, especially, and particularly if I can like pick up something where it's got some sort of timbre or vocal intonation to it, I try to repeat actually what I pick up on. And so, when I start doing that, gradually these voices start kind of happening more. So, that's kind of like a sort of an interesting feedback kind of situation going on there. And in addition, so I start getting into the habit of doing that, and I've continued doing that to this day. And in addition to that, I had a couple of very interesting vision-like situations occur. One of them happened in late July, approximate to like the 29th of July, I think, and give or take a day. And what was happening, I'm lying in my bed, I'm approaching twilight, very relaxed, nighttime of course, and in my vision, it's as though I'm walking down the block and it's like east-west, and then I turn to my right, looking to the sky, I'm looking north, and there's this point of light. It appears to be a star, or like a really bright star, perhaps like the planet Venus or something, and I'm looking at it in this vision, again, lying on my bed, but the visual cue is as though I'm just down the block. And I'm looking at this point of light in the sky, and it splits off into like 6 or 7 different points of light, and they kind of all disappear. And as soon as that happens, then I get that massive rush of blood to my head again, just like when I was implementing this rotation for the first time, with remote viewing for the first time. And that was a very, very peculiar instance of that happening. And, I think I forget if it was my first vision or not, because in addition to that, there was this other instance where, again, lying in my bed, different day, perhaps it was a month before, perhaps it was a month after. I wasn't documenting anything at that time. But again, lying in my bed, and in my vision, it's as though I'm in my sister's doorway in her bedroom down the hall, looking down the hall to my parents' bedroom door, and it's open. I can see light, I can see color, I can see the end of their bed. Very, very peculiar, because this isn't remote viewing. This is like full-on color. I'm there. I'm looking as though I'm actually there, not light and shadows making out shapes or anything like that. This is a very peculiar instance. So I had those two vision-like instances, one associated with the blood rush, and in 2017, and it was very. Those two particular things stood out above the rest of the whole remote viewing thing. So that's that. And then I mentioned the voices, and continuing on with those. So, okay, so it's 2017, we're going into 2018, and at the very tail end of 2017, I have this really spectacular dream. And it's, I think it involves me perhaps seeing aliens or something. It's kind of weird. And I wake up from this dream, it's as though I'm in my bed, and it's nighttime, and there's this invisible force moving me around. It turns me left, it turns me right, it spins me clockwise around my bed, head to toe, and then it lifts me out of my bed. And my dad enters the room. He's a young man, he's got his mustache back, and he's like, "What's going on here?" I'm like, "Dad, this is really happening. What are you doing there?" And then, really kind of weird thing. And so, things continue on with my dad. He's actually sick or something. I have to help him downstairs to a chair. He's like in diabetic shock or something. He's like, "Brian, I need a bowl of milk." I'm like, "Dad, don't you want cereal in your milk?" And he's like, "No, I can't have cereal anymore." And that is kind of weird. But I wake up from that, and I wake up from that, I'm in twilight now. And when I'm in twilight and there's this very powerful remote viewing, I'm seeing bunches of faces, like tons and tons of faces looking at me. And then there's this tiger's face. It's like a bunch of faces, human faces looking at me, and they all have their eyes on me. And then there's this tiger, and it's like, it's something. I don't know. It's a spirit. I'm not sure if it's my spirit animal or what, but that was the Twilight remote viewing-esque vision. And that happened just before the turn of the year into 2018. And so, okay, so beginning of 2018, I still have a couple of remote viewing instances. They're kind of more on the decline. They kind of start getting scarier, so I don't want to do them as much. And then I have this dream on the 24th of June. And it starts with like a normal dream. I'm observing this family. There's some sort of dispute, mother, father, son, daughter. The son and daughter, they're young adults, like late teens, early 20s or something. And the son seems to be like a psychopath or a sociopath or something. And there's this dispute, and it's all the son's fault, but he's trying to somehow shift blame onto the father. It's like he's trying to concede certain things, but also trying to get the father to concede something that is either untrue or illogical relative to whatever situation is going on. And that's that dream, and I wake up from that dream. I'm in twilight, dark in my vision, I'm lying on my side, and I get a vibration, a ringing in the back of my head, proximate to where the optical lobe is. And it's very nice, deep tissue massage, very comfortable, very nice. And it's this vibration sort of ringing, and I can hear some ringing. It's like this ringing kind of similar or akin to when you're humming and whistling at the same time. It's like that kind of thing. And so I'm in twilight, and then it's really weird. There's these square lights appearing in my vision, and they're kind of congealing to make some sort of broader shape, and then they fill the entirety of my vision, and suddenly I'm in another dream. This is really, really strange, because it's almost like I'm interacting with some sort of focused energy or some kind of technology at this point. This is the first instance where it's like even occurring to me that I'm interacting with a technology. And is that truly what's going on? I'm unsure, but that's my interpretation of what's happening. So again, square dancing lights forming a larger image and then encompassing my entire vision, and suddenly I'm in another dream. And in this dream, I'm waking up in my own bed. I'm very scared as to what's that sensation previously was, and I feel like something's going on, like aliens or something like that. And I look out to my window and I see all these gremlins or goblins up in these trees. And not like scary ones, but like goofy ones. Like I know there's this brown goofy looking thing that showed up in some sort of 1980s movie or something. And it flies to my window, and I stare deeply into its eyes, and it's like its eyes are the only thing that remains in focus, and everything else in my vision goes out of focus. And when everything reacquires the focus, it's really weird. It's the vacuum cleaner from The Brave Little Toaster, only it's not a cartoon character. It's somehow gotten that 3D rendering treatment, kind of like the difference between Pikachu the cartoon or Pikachu as it showed up in that new Ryan Reynolds movie from a couple months back. Anyway. So I've got the vacuum cleaner from The Brave Little Toaster and all his buddies outside my window now. I'm like, Mom, Dad, you gotta look what's outside the window. And then the dream cuts to black. I'm back in twilight, back in my own bed. And this vibration, this ringing, continues again. And again, the whole square grid pattern, squares of light creating this broader shape, then enveloping my vision. And then in this next dream, so I'm dreaming, twilight dreaming, and twilight dreaming. And in this third dream, I'm in this dark room, and there's this circular window, and there's this clock face, and it's all nines across the clock face, and the clock is itself, it's It's almost like a set piece on a stage, right? And it's this clock face, and it's going around in circles just outside the circular room, or a circular window in this dark room. And there's some seats in there, in just like in front of the window. So I sit in a seat, I look at the window, observing this clock with all nines on its face. And then I turn to my left, and then I can see that I'm in the wing of a stage. I'm like on the edge of the stage close to a wing, and I can see that there's this entire stage. The lights come up, and in the opposite wing I see the director of the acting program, Alex Gelman, from my school. And then his daughter's with him. She's Anna. She was actually along with us on the Russia trip too. I'm like, Alex? Anna, and then the cast has convened like as though they're teching something out or something, and Bryan Cranston is a part of the cast. And I'm freaking out because it's Bryan Cranston, and it's this whole weird mess. And the dream kind of devolves into like an actual dream kind of, just random stuff going on, devoid of meaning. And I do eventually wake up from that. I've been thinking about this. Was this technology implemented to get me to focus on that clock with all the nines on it? Because there's perhaps some kind of symbology involved with that, I'm thinking. And then once that had occurred, then my brain just took the dream on in its own direction. And so that was that instance. That was the 24th of June. So the reason why I remember the date precisely was 2 nights later. I'm having this dream, and I'm having a test. I'm about to have a math test, and I'm in community college of all places. And before we take the test in this dream, the teacher makes an announcement saying that the guy sitting right next to me just got a scholarship to a 4-year school to play on their football team. So we're all clapping, congratulating him, and then we go to preparing for this test. I reach into my to my backpack, get my calculator, and then this football guy, he turns to me and asks me, "Are you going to wake up and record this?" And as soon as he says that, like the instant he says that, my alarm goes off, and it's like 6 a.m. or something like that. And so, okay, I wake up immediately hearing those words, and then I record and start describing the dream. And as soon as that happened, and it's from that point on that I started documenting like interesting dreams or weird phenomena associated with my dreams, where like there's this vibration or ringing, or I'm hearing voices or shocks to the head or something like that. And so it's from that point on, June 26th of last year, I start documenting a lot of things. So that's that. Oh shoot! You know what? I lied. Sorry. So what I was describing, was June 24th. That wasn't June 24th. With that dream where there's that vibration, the ringings, and the square lights, actually, that was actually October 15th. So this is after that fact. What was actually occurring on June 24th was I had was this very different, embarrassing dream where I'm in so this is the June 24th dream. Forget about what I previously said. That's October 15th. Okay, so actual June 24th was, I'm in a movie theater. I'm naked. Everyone sees me naked, and everyone evacuates the movie theater because, oh no, it's pasty naked white guy. Let's all get out of here. And so the cops eventually come, and there's this detective who has to interview me being naked in the movie theater. I'm still in the movie theater. I'm still naked, but there's this detective that still has to interview me anyway. Again, dreams make no sense. And I simply posed this question to the detective: when is it all going to begin? And I exit the movie theater through the emergency exit. There's my boss there, and I say to her, "Goodbye, thank you for everything." And I'm running forward, flying low above the ground at like 100 miles an hour, and then I shoot up into the sky as though I was like some kind of jet taking off and then going vertical into the sky. And it's this absolutely amazing flying feeling, And, and eventually the storm clouds start gathering around me, but I'm not even a little bit scared of them. And, I'm still in this really amazing, happy feeling. And then I wake up from that, and if there was any sort of vision-like dream that was telling me to quit my job, I mean, that was it if ever I saw one. So that was June 24th. It's, in today's date's July 18th now at the recording of this video, so I still haven't quit that job. But, it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. Anyway, so that's all that. And so I explained the June 24th, June 26th, and the October 15th dream. And now this really weird thing started happening, and this is approximate to November 22nd or 23rd. The situation is my mom and dad have gone to California for Thanksgiving, and this is Thanksgiving of 2018. And I'm doing some shopping on Amazon to get presents ready for Christmas, because there's 4 kids of my family. My older brother's married, so I gotta get a present for his wife, and my younger brother's got his girlfriend, and they have their newborn son that year too, little Jack. And so I'm doing all this shopping online, and I'm also preparing things for my own personal wish list as well. And I'm in the process of describing certain rules or parameters relating to the list, or certain things a certain category of things that I want. I'm composing this paragraph, on my Amazon wish list. I'm lying in bed. I've got my laptop on my stomach, and I'm thinking about things I want to say. I have my hands up like this. Now, eventually they start kind of shaking like this, like I'm kind of in a very relaxed state and my hands just start shaking. This isn't unfamiliar with me because when I was doing a lot of creative writing in college, just for fun, and it had nothing to do with my major, but I would like to write stories or write scenes or something like that. And when I would be sitting at the table, these things would happen where my hands would kind of just start shaking or rattling, kind of like this. And so, this is happening, so that's that. And, this is not unfamiliar. I'm looking at my laptop, and what happened when I'm in this state is one of my hands just goes just impulsively just goes like that. I'm like, what the hell was that? And, over there's my wallet lying on the bed next to me. So, I'm still handing like this. I'm kind of getting this impulse to kind of want to look at it, and again, this has to do with, and I was also in this moment kind of reminded of my experiences with being back to back with my scene partner. Again, just your entire job is to understand the parameters of the game, but follow the impulse, right? And I was able to match up with my partner, so I'm just like, okay, I'm following the impulse. I roll to my left away, or I roll to my right away from my wallet, but I reach left for it, and I just start, digging into my wallet, pulling random stuff out. And, I'm pulling things out. I got someone's name and phone number there, and, I'm just thinking about, there's an old guy that I remember that I used to work with, and for whatever reason, I had his name, and it wasn't a phone number, it was some other number because it wasn't the full digits, but it was almost like I'm not sure if it was like an employee number or an operating number, but I think he was offering me to get a job with UPS or something like that, or the postal office or something like that at one point in time. So that was that. I was like, okay, well, that was kind of weird. I didn't think too much of it at the time. So I go back to my Amazon wish list, hands, and something's off. Something doesn't feel right. I'm feeling this impulse to really want to do something, right? Also keep in mind, I am home alone. I do have a hard liquor drink. It's kind of like a Manhattan. I think what must have been, it was probably like some Jim Beam or something like that on the rocks. And so perhaps being in this state of having had a lot of this drink, perhaps I'm exposing myself to outside influences, right? Perhaps, I'm in a more vulnerable state where I can be manipulated in such a way. And so perhaps that's where a lot of these impulses are coming from. So I'm something's off. I don't feel right. I feel like I gotta get up and get out of bed and do something. All right. So I get up, I get out of bed. I set my laptop aside, and my motions are strictly in terms of like right angles. So I stand up straight. I turn 90 degrees to my right, walk straight to my closet, do a sidestep, and the door's already open. My closet's a mess, and I start just taking boxes out, and box, and then the boxes are on the floor. I turn to on the floor, and there's this big box. And inside, it's like an Amazon, kind of like a packaging box, right? And then there's a smaller packaging box in it, and it's got random stuff in it. I'm not a particularly disciplined person when I clean my room, so I'll put like a lot of random junk that I don't necessarily want to throw away, put it in a box, and put the box in the closet. So I've got a box with a smaller box, and it's got random stuff, but in the small box is another wallet. So, and in this wallet, there's really not much of anything in it. There's my old student ID card from when I was in the Moscow Art Theater School. There's an old Social Security card that I had thought I had lost and had since replaced. And in it were a bunch of fortune cookie fortunes. All right? And so I pull these things out, and it's really, really weird. I'm looking at these fortune cookie fortunes, and one of them says, "A relationship is about to blossom. You will be blessed." It's like, okay. And that's that, right? Okay. So that is November 22nd of 2018. Now, at this point, this whole thing with this numeric relationship, which this channel has mostly been about, I discovered that. I should kind of backtrack, because I discovered that December of 2017, and I was watching one of Cliff's. It was actually, Cliff had recently done one of these videos with, at that time, with the Three Amigos. So that is with Jay Snip. That's his channel. His name's Joe. And then there's Bix Weir. His channel on YouTube is Road to Ruda. And then of course you've got Cliff High, and they're talking about things. And I think there was this Three Amigos back in November of 2017 where they were talking briefly about the atoms and the numbers of isotopes that they had. So things like how gold has one stable isotope, silver has two stable isotopes, technetium has none. And there was relating to that. And then Bix Weir at some point in November, and one of his YouTube videos he does is something called the Morning Horn of Z's. And he reiterated that concept of this, technetium having 0, gold having 1, silver having 2. And while I'm watching this video, I'm getting this alert, this text alert from my phone service company, and saying that we're approaching the limit to my data. At the time, I was working a job where I was at work for 10 hours with largely nothing to do. I had my responsibilities, not burn the place down, lock it up at night, things like that. But it was super easy peasy job. I had nothing to do with, and I had my phone. There was no Wi-Fi, so if I'm watching alternate media on my phone, I'm using up a lot of data. So I'm approaching my limit. So I got to cut the videos, and the most recent thing I saw was this Bix Weir video where he was describing the elements. So I decided to examine this thing for myself. I had nothing else to do. I was kind of bored anyway. And I had noticed that variance between odd numbered elements and even numbered elements at that point. And noticing that the evens had more stable isotopes than the odds. So I'm looking at the odds. I'm getting this gut feeling there's something going on with prime numbers. I organized the odd numbered elements into prime and non-prime numbers. I saw that the primes, to my surprise, were outnumbering the composites. And then I just counted them up to where they're equal. And you have this very striking correlation with the periodic table of elements with the key delineation to where they're equal for the first time associating with all naturally occurring elements. And then where they're equal for the very last time, that's the very end of the periodic table. So I'm like, that's super interesting. And so I'm counting up these things up into columns, and then I see that there's 23 pairs of them relating to the naturally occurring elements, again, amongst all the odd numbered elements anyway. And I saw that's 2 pairs of 23, and it's like, that's the human chromosome count, and it's really weird. Anyway, so at that point, so again, it's a numeric relationship, right? So to get back to this whole November thing, this thing occurring in November, a relationship is about to blossom. You will be blessed. I didn't make that association at the time in November. It wasn't until a couple weeks later where at that time I had described this whole thing with this numeric relationship to a coworker of mine who herself has a YouTube video, and some of her videos are getting over 100,000 views. So I'm describing this, and she had since quit her job, but I left her a note saying if you wanted to collaborate on a video talking about this numeric relationship, you might be able to get the word out there. And so she had left. I left her the note, and it had been a couple of weeks after that, and sometime in December of 2018, after this instance of looking at this fortune saying that there's a relationship about to blossom, I'll be blessed. And I said, what if this is not a relationship between a man and a woman? I was thinking about it. I'm brushing my teeth one night, a couple of weeks later, in December, and I'm brushing my teeth. I'm thinking about that whole situation with the fortune cookie and those impulses. I said, what if it's not a relationship between a man and a woman? What if it's this numeric relationship? And then within 10 minutes of thinking that, this girl gets back to me saying, yeah, hey, this is a really neat idea. We should go forward with this idea. And it's just, what? And so it was from that point on that motivated me to do all this research, up through February and March. And then, of course, at some point, approximately to that time, she had eventually dropped out of wanting to do the idea, but had done all this research anyway. It motivated at least to do more investigating relating with that numeric relationship. And so it was just really, really kind of strange thing that was the motivating factor that got me to go forward with this whole thing. So yeah, just kind of weird. So yeah, like all this stuff starts happening, and it got me motivated to do all these things with doing all this research to start creating these videos. And then of course I opt to enlist the help of my buddy Nick to do all these videos. The gentleman sitting behind the camera there, of course. So yeah, and that's kind of how we've gotten this whole thing going on. But really weird, things start getting interesting on the very first day that we start filming. So let's rewind back to April 12th this year, the date that we're recording the first video. I wake up that morning, and it's not to my alarm. It's actually, my phone's hooked onto its charger, but it's kind of finicky with that connection there. So sometimes it'll get disconnected and it'll make a noise, like the blong, blong, things like that. So the morning of the 12th, where we happen to schedule the first day of filming, which is also my 34th birthday as well. So it's kind of a very special day, that we're getting all this ball rolling. It's also my birthday. My phone on its own starts making noises, and it's like blong, blong. It's early, and those first two blongs don't motivate me to get out of bed, but it's really annoying all the same. So if it happens again, I'm on it. So it eventually, after about a minute or so, goes blong again, and I get to my phone, I look at it, and it's 4:44 a.m. Okay. Now at this point, I watch a lot of guys related to Cliff. So like Jay Snip, we've got Bix Weir. I'm at this point certainly I'm aware of Dick Allgaier and Michelle White Dove. And one of Jay Snip's videos, of course, was relating to angel numbers and looking up their meaning. Eventually there'll be numbers in triplicate related with times that you see on a phone or something, or someone's license plate or whatever. But 444, that's 3 4s. I mean, so there's something going on with that. And so I wake up to that, and then I've got to get a couple of toiletries. I'm out of shampoo, and so I leave the house to get that stuff, shower up, look nice for the video. And as I leave the house, I glance at my phone. It's 5:55. Okay. And then, so we go out throughout the day. We shoot the video. We get that done. It's a good shoot. And for your first outing, of course. And we do that. I get home, and it's in the afternoon. We're approaching like doing something nice for my birthday, but my dad's got to do some shopping, right? So we go we drive for about a half hour. We go shopping, And we do that thing, get whatever food or groceries that we need. And, it's like Costco that we go to. And so we're done with that. And at the end of it, I was thinking about that whole thing with the 444 and 555 thing. And then I'm thinking about Joe's angel numbers. And, I started looking some of these things up, and I was like, okay, so the archangels are kind of listening to me, or they're with me, or walking with me, or something like that. All right. And so, I'm looking that up on my phone. We leave, it's 3:03. It took about a half hour to get to the store. And I'm thinking, we're going to get home at 3:33. Of course, my dad's driving, traffic conditions, a lot of random variants. Educated guess, we're going to get home about 3:33. So we get out of the car, we get home, sure enough, all the clocks in the house are saying 3:33. And, I got this whole thing in my idea about the angel numbers. And I'm just like, okay, so I'm looking all of these up. The big deal numbers are actually 444 and 333. I think one's got to do with angels and archangels, and one's got to do with the ascended masters like Jesus, Moses, guys like those. And so I'm like, okay, if that's not a sign motivating me that what I'm doing here with this numeric relationship is in divine work somehow in some fashion, or at least, or if these forces are nefarious, then they're trying to get me to think that that's the case at least. But, somehow some influence outside of me, it's apparent to me that like what I'm doing is the right thing to do, or it's like getting me to at least think that. So, so that's my birthday. And so so now at this point, I've actually got my laptop here. I've got some other documented instances of just interesting things. And so we've got that. The following evening, so this is the night of, this is the night of April 13th going into April 14th. I'm hearing some voices. I hear something akin, perhaps a man and a woman talking with one another. And then suddenly there's this booming. Again, I can hear timbre and intonation. They're human-esque. I interpret these words as English, and they're all within normal range of human emotion, of how I interpret these things. But this night of the 13th, I hear this very booming voice. It's almost like the Cave of Wonders from the movie of Aladdin, like, who disturbs my slumber? And in this kind of quality of voice, of timbre, I hear it say, leave him alone. Kind of scary. So I'm lying on my side again when I'm hearing this, and I'm just like, okay, like if there's bad spirits out there, you guys go away. Good ones, you can stay. I'm just what else can I do, right? And then within about a minute, perhaps 2 minutes of that voice, like static cling, like you take off a sweater, it's dry in the wintertime, right? You kind of get that sensation of like some sort of electric disequilibrium where your hair is standing on end. And so I'm lying in bed, and in front of my face, I kind of get this staticky feeling kind of building up in front of me, and it kind of like becomes slightly more powerful and suddenly more powerful until it accumulates right in front of my nose, and I get some sort of electric shock, like a boop. Not so painful like it's a static shock where, like, say you're kissing your mother on the cheek or something, and there's a static shock like that. That's a little too sharp. This was more of like an impulse, like a boop. It's just kind of weird. So yeah, that was the 13th. And then the 22nd, I'm falling asleep. So this is Easter evening. And I had some beer, I had a beer, I had a glass of wine. So I'm not that much alcohol, but and again, this whole idea with me opening up myself to other influences when I drink alcohol. And I really haven't had all that much, in the intervening days. So to say, I had a beer and a wine, that kind of plays to like, how much I drink typically, which is really not all that much if and when I do. But so I go to bed that night and I feel this tingling in the right side of my ear, like, it's, and you're just kind of, that's like a sensation that really hadn't been there at that point. And so that happens before I fall asleep, and I'm falling, and so I'm having this dream again, some sort of I'm in a bed, perhaps a hospital bed or something, and I have this invisible force kind of roll me left, roll me right. I fall out of my bed, and this force lifts me up back into my bed. And that happens, and suddenly I feel like in that dream I'm being whooshed away, going at 1 trillion miles an hour across all space and time, back into my own actual bed. And when I'm in my own actual bed, I'm waking up out of this dream, I'm in twilight, and I'm remote viewing. And this is a very peculiar kind of remote viewing, because it's not like those visions I had, and it's not like this typical organic kind of remote view. This is a very static shot of, it's almost like I'm just looking at a picture. I'm not actually within the scene I'm observing, I'm sort of like looking at a picture, I'm outside of whatever I'm looking at, right? It's almost like I'm interfacing with like a computer screen or something like that. And it looks like it's like the inside of a warehouse. And I see, typical like warehouse equipment. Maybe I'm like in like a sort of like a Amazon distribution center. It looks like that. And I see this cardboard box, okay? And I see this cardboard box, and it's changing to other boxes, but it's not like morphing. It's like literally image, next image, next image, next box, next image. So it's, and the size, the shapes are kind of different. The dimensions are a little bit different. And there's different designs on these boxes. And so they change, but then they start changing super, super quick. It's almost like you're like using a mouse roller, like to change from between box and box. And someone took that mouse roller and just went psst, and spun it. It's like, and you're seeing like dozens of, like a dozen boxes per second scrolling through this way. It gave me this absolute impression that I was interacting with, that I was interfacing with some kind of technology while in this kind of remote viewing twilight state, coming out of my dream. Very, very interesting, very, very kind of weird. And so that was April 22nd this past year. And then a month later, I'm having this lucid dream, and I'm looking in a mirror, and my reflection, it's not me. And then this reflection turns into a different face, still a man. So one's like a blonde guy, and then one's like a black guy with black hair, and he's got like bangs, and his bangs have like blonde tips to them or something like that, and they're kind of like facing down. Really weird. And then I wake up from that, and it goes to black, so I'm back into twilight. And then I'm back into the dream. So it's like into the same dream. So it's like I lost the lucid dream and then reacquired it really quick. And then I'm in there for a few more seconds. I go into a different room, and then I get this really weird orientation feeling, right? It's as though I'm being hung from my ankles, and I'm being hung upside down, but I'm not completely off the ground. It's like my head's still resting on the ground, so a lot of the weight of my body is resting on my head, and I feel a lot of pressure on the back of my head. But apart from that, I'm being strung up by my ankles. And I've got this feeling that I'm upside down otherwise. And so I come out of that dream feeling as though I'm in that orientation. I'm in twilight as though I'm feeling in that orientation, black vision. I open my eyes, I'm lying in my bed. I can see myself in my bed, and I still have that orientation, that as though I'm upside down with a lot of pressure on my bed, on the back of my head. Of course, I'm also like leaning my head against my headboard. So that would explain why I'm kind of in that sort of orientation. And that lasts for about a second. But I woke up horizontal in my bed with this orientation feeling that I'm actually upside down. Very, very kind of strange. And that was the first instance of anything like that occurring. And so that is May 22nd. Okay, and then June 19th, I'm having this dream, and I'm in a black box kind of situation. There's some sort of presentation going on, and it's I'm holding up like a giant Mjolnir kind of hammer, right, like that Thor has, and I'm hoisting this up like I'm hoisting up the Stanley Cup, and like it's a black box orientation with stadium seating on two sides of it. I turned to one stadium, and no one's really impressed by me. Everyone's looking at their laptops or their phones or something. I turned to the other stadium seating. I'm hoisting up this Mjolnir thing, like, yeah, I'm the man. I have the power. And no one gives a shit. And so, and then there's this PowerPoint presentation going on, and then it's showing some kind of car or truck or something, and they're showing on the projector this document with this picture of a truck, and they're enhancing the image in some sort of respect, and they're finding some sort of hidden message on it. And then from that point, I turned into this dark entryway into this dark room. I briefly look into it and come out, but there's this force clinging onto my sleeve, trying to pull me back in, and I'm trying to pull out. And so I wake up from that point. And when I wake up from that point, very strange, I'm, again, remote viewing, almost as though I'm interfacing with technology again. And it's this document. It's like, it's almost like some sort of mathematical peer review paper, where it's showing like its premise, and like it's showing like these mathematical equations on it, very complex, something calculus or beyond level. And the reason why I feel like I'm interfacing with technology again is because it's scrolling up in a very jerky motion like this, and then it just sort of kind of dissolves away. All the letters dissolve away, and then I'm, just basically having just woken up in my bed and in black vision. So that's that. So that's June 19th. And then now it's July 4th. So this is the 4th of July. Fireworks. I'm lying in bed, and I'm not lying in my bed. I'm home alone with my dog, actually, and he's really finicky little guy. He's a black long-haired dachshund, and he's used to sleeping with my dad on the couch in the living room. So sure enough, I'm only ever going to get to sleep if he's happy, and so I'm lying on the couch in the living room, not in my own bed. And I'm actually getting a decent remote viewing, full-on globs of colorful light, turns into lines, manipulate the lines, and oh hey, remote viewing something. And it's this man. He's got aviator glasses on, and that's the big focus, is just looking at his general disposition with these aviator glasses on. Maybe he's got a baseball cap on too, not the focus, but that kind of guy. And that happens, and then I hear this woman's voice call out for some guy named Mike. Not as though he's in danger or anything, but as though, Mike, I need your attention, something's happening, And, I'm not sure if this is related to the image I'm viewing, or if the fact that I'm remote viewing in general, because I hear voices regardless of whether I'm not in remote viewing. And then, but to say that this took, again, I'm not sure if it's aliens or spirits or some sort of covert government operation that's violating my Fourth Amendment rights or whatever. Oh my God. So, but I hear this woman's voice calling out for this guy named Mike as soon as that happens. And so that's 4th of July. And then the most recent thing actually happened 2 nights ago. And I'm coming back from movie night with my buddy, and I drop him off at his place, and from that point, it's a 15-minute drive back to my place. And, it's a full moon again, and I had like this 24-ounce of very powerful beer. I think it was the Lagunitas. I love those. I love IPAs. And I had it during the movie, but I also don't drink all that much. So, I'm definitely good to drive, but, I'm happy. And so I decided to get a little bit chatty with myself. And, all this stuff going on with all these voices and, these sensations leading me to giving me the impression that I'm interfacing with some sort of technology somehow, some way. And again, I don't know the nature of these intelligences that are operating alongside with me, but I don't know, again, don't know if they're spirits or aliens or humans, but I just can't help but feel that, I've got somebody riding along with me. So I start getting chatty in the car and said, hey, lady, because, somewhere along like the late April, early May timeframe, I heard this one time someone saying to someone else, I'm going to take your place. So I'm not sure if these are guardian angels or whatever, and they kind of swap. So some guys here to interact with me in some capacity, and once I do a thing, then okay, they'll hand me off to somebody else. Okay, now you keep an eye on him. You just observe and report. What is he going to do from this point on? I don't know what the nature of, possibly, but I've got this sensation. There's certainly in the past couple of months, it's like I've been hearing like a woman's voice more. So I feel if someone's observing and reporting my activities, I think it's the lady person, being, whoever, that's kind of been hanging around me lately, who is probably very disturbed at all the things I do in my private time. So I'm probably traumatized for all of eternity now. So I don't know, but so anyway, I start getting chatty. I'm like, look, lady, I don't know who or what you are, but I kind of get the sense that you're the person who's been riding along with me recently. I talk, today is me coming out with all this woo-woo stuff, right? So this is a big deal to me that I'm making this video. And so this is the night before last, driving home, and I'm just saying, I've got this big video coming up, and it's going to be a pretty big deal. And so whatever kind of spiritual guidance or just good mojo or good vibrations you can send along to me, it'd be much appreciated, right? And so I go home, so I park the car, I'm at home, I go inside, I go to bed, and so that all happens, and then go to sleep, I'm dreaming, and again, not vision-like dream, not truly lucid dreaming, because it's otherwise like a normal kind of dream, but there's some sort of weird physical sensations going on. So what's happening is like you're at these places and these scenes, you're like a house, a mansion, like a conference room, or a convention center, or a theme amusement park, and I'm shifting all these locations. And what's inducing these shifts is I get this physical sensation of in my upper chest. And again, like I'm not sure if you've ever dreamt where you're also simultaneously feeling a physical sensation, right? Because it would happen for me in some instances as a kid, where like a storm front would go by and there's a big variance in barometric pressure, and then one of my ears would get clogged or something. It'd be very painful as a kid, right? And I would be dreaming about something, and then I'd have this ear pain while in the dream, and I would notice it. And I'd wake up and, oh, hey, my ear's clogged. This sucks. It's middle of the night. Oh God, that's terrible. So in this dream, I feel like a physical sensation is actually happening to my actual body. It's happening in my upper chest, and it's like this very mild vibration and mild squeezing that kind of ramps up into a very, very briefly in this spike of very powerful vibrating and a very powerful squeezing. And my physical reaction to it is like that. And it's really persistent. It continues on exactly the same way every time, about a dozen times within this dream. It causes me to wake up, and it makes me think, oh, thank God I'm not dreaming anymore, except I'm still dreaming. And as long as I'm dreaming, these physical vibrations within my chest cavity, moving around all my organs and squeezing them, it was just so persistent and so strange, and so long as I was dreaming, it was still continuing going on. So, and it continued on through all these phases of a dream with all these different scenes or settings, and eventually it would occur to me that, okay, I'm still dreaming, or I'll just kind of float happy for a while. So fly around a little bit, float above everyone, everything, and everybody. But eventually I wake up, and surely enough, I'm back awake in my own bed, and it's normal, and all the vibration has stopped. So it's just so weird, though, that right before I go to bed, I ask for good vibrations, and sure enough, I get vibrations of a sort. It wasn't really comfortable. Like I mentioned, the whole thing with the ringing, and it felt like a deep tissue massage is super nice. This was not exactly comfortable. It was perhaps not bad at first, but that spike of intense vibration, intense squeezing, it constricted me to like, okay, that was my physical reaction to that, feeling that physical sensation. And so the optimistic view is that somehow these organs in my upper chest, like kidneys, liver, lungs, perhaps there were toxins that were kind of embedded in there that would be difficult to get out, and they're being vibrated and being squeezed out. Optimistic view, right? So I mean, kind of like, I ask for good vibrations and I get something akin to like a medicinal treatment that's not exactly comfortable, but perhaps not necessarily bad for you either. Again, optimistic view, but I mean, the neutral view is that there was no actual good or harm either way, and here I am still standing doing this video anyway, so. But yeah, I mean, that's the majority of all these experiences over the past couple of years, and I do want to say, like, observing that Cliff High interview on that pirated video was really the inflection point for things just kind of being there to a low degree, and then all these really, really interesting things eventually happening. So, but yeah, that's all that, and that's to my knowledge, everything related to my subjective experience is all true and accurate to that. And the big question is am I interpreting these things accurately? So, but yeah, and so this has been definitely the biggest video we've done so far, and I do thank you so much for sticking around this far. So yeah. So yeah, I'm Brian Downing, and that was my experience with all this woo-woo stuff. So yeah, have a good one.